Hey, what's going on, tribe? Wholeness. All right, so I've been a part of tribe for going on probably about 11 years now. And originally I came into tribe through Savan Bomar, through the Code to the Matrix, through Spirit Text, and then through SecretEnergy, going through the university semester 1 and 2, and then being a part of the ambassador mentorship program. And wow, okay, so in going through that process, I had come to learn a lot about myself. And part of that, I believe, is when we're moving from the poles in duality, from just being a human, a person, a mortal, to moving into basically being a spirit, and then finding a sagacity with that. So in that process, I've been presented things, and I'm going to say things like almost like trades or an identity. And this ties a lot into how our ego is shaped, and you'll understand what I mean by ego in a moment, hopefully. So when we're born, we are born, right? So now we have a body, we have little cues that we get from the environment that help us shape a context of who we are, whether that be our gender, our sexual identity, our nationality, our name, our astrology sign, etc., etc. And as we're going through that process, that puberty, then we start getting into trades that add another layer of complexity. I'll say relationships and trades are one of those. So for instance, when I had started, my first trade was probably security and then computers. So through having a slight security background, a very entry-level security background, and then getting into IT, it just naturally kind of, the later or latter built upon the former. And so I found myself identifying as a security specialist, right? And so after I left that, then I start another trade, and let's say that trade is canvassing or business, or let's say electrician, right? So now, quote unquote, I'm an electrician. That's who I am. And it's another of these titles that we tend to hold, these identities that we hold, and these become our lens that we see a lot of things through. So in going through this process, this terrain modification with Savan Bomar, I started seeing that I was a healer, right? And at first it was something where it was like shaman. What ends up happening is once we start stepping into the role of whatever trade that is, then we start identifying ourselves with that. And it's really important to make this distinction, because it's something that we're holding. It's like there's an empty, let's say like an open hand, and then the identity will come in and will hold that. And that becomes our looking glass that we're peering through. So I have a very high standard when it comes to entheogens, ceremony. I mean, really, I just want to say I have a standard, but I know that words aren't taken the way that they're intended, So I have a really, really high standard for when it comes to something that's dealing with spirituality, or truth, and that I believe boils down to the integrity of it. Nature's very integral. Spirit is very integral. Like that is the key, and that is, on a slight side tangent, that is why we see people that don't have integrity basically representing the opposite pole, right? All right, so I saw myself as a healer, and I realized that before that I saw myself as a warrior. And so that was really interesting, because there's a cycle of where we go from warrior to healer. Like the person that basically had to find out through confrontation, through friction, through violence, now has moved deep enough into one pole to have a context or contrast to go against from that experience, and now have the experience of love, unifying life, right? Warrior goes towards death, healer goes towards life. So I was in the spectrum of healer, and I kept finding myself being pulled into the spectrum of warrior. And initially I was like, oh, this is this is something I have unresolved. This is something that, this is testing my compassion, right? All of these things that were relevant at the time, they were true at the time, but it wasn't a constant truth. It wasn't always true. It wasn't a true truth, right? It was a subjective truth. And so once I was able to basically empty my hand and receive, then I tapped into the monk, right? The Buddha, the abbot, the immortal, the one that recognizes that there's a perfect space and a perfect sequence for all of the above. And that was real interesting, because it was around the time when all of this, conspiracy stuff started to leak out and come out, talking about islands with people, all of that stuff. And so that was real interesting. But so anyway, so in this process, my body's going through changes, my mind's going through changes emotionally, my family, like so many different aspects and tenets of what that actual experience is, and the role that tribe and secret energy has really been able to play. And I think I was probably in my 6th or 7th ayahuasca ceremony, and I realized that tribe is really a place to receive you in your blossoming and help you harmonize that experience. it's like, it's this wonderful support system, you know, but it's also this family experience, this community experience, you know, and it's not like a pie that's heavy on the crust and light on the fruit, you know, heavy on the sugar, light on the, you know, fruit. It's perfect. It really is. And so yeah. So I've gone through that process, you know, and I just want to take the time to really take a moment and be present with this connection, and recognize that we're crossing paths right now, and that if this was a different time, right, different circumstance, different environment, that we would be crossing paths in person. We would be forced by circumstance to experience something together, to have some type of friction and harmonizing, so that we could exchange our experiences and prove our experiences to each other and strengthen our bond as humans, as spirit. And you know, I think that that's exactly what the world needs right now. I think that's something that the world's been needing, and I think it's something that we all recognize, you know. So what Savant's been able to do is, through literally probably countless hours, I mean, I'm sure homeboy has counted them, but him and his team have put together a social media site. SecretEnergy.com is a site where you can get, it's a platform of community, of inspirational mentors, of people that have been vetted on, I mean, it's just, it's really something that you have to check out for yourself. So I'm going to challenge you. To define value for me. Define value. I want you to spend 1 month as an ambassador, having unrestricted access to the chats, to the Telegram chats, to the Telegram groups, to the university semesters, to all of the sovereignty mentorship, season 1. I'm going to challenge you to define value for me in that, because it's interesting. Savannah has asked us a couple of times, you know, like, hey, like, what do you guys think about this? Like, what are you getting out of this? And it's interesting because how do you, like, there's some experiences and some expressions that only a painting could capture, right? And there's some experiences that only, you know, childbirth could capture, you know, like, define love, and then you have a child, and then it's like, wow, like, this is, you know, first you have your, you know, second grade kiss or whatever, right? Second grade, that's crazy. But anyway, you have so first you have a kiss, right? And then you look at the contrasting pole of having a child, you know, 25 something years later, and look at that contrast in what love means, you know? It's interesting. So I'm curious, and so I'm challenging you to show me, to define value for me. Define value. 1 month. Till next time, Honus.